Let's go.
Hey, y'all. We are back again. I am so excited to have you here again with us for Girlfriends Chit Chat Show. It's our Friday night, y'all. We're going to have us a great time tonight. And so, y'all, with no further ado, my name is Amira Bay. I am your host, as well as my co-host, Leslie Thomas of LT Financial, as well as my Shauna Price, the Connection Guru. And as always, y'all, we have a phenomenal guest with us tonight. Miss Lapronda Spann. We are happy to have her here with us. She is everything with government contracts. And we're going to talk to her this evening and chat it up and get a good feel about what she does. But let me just let you all know a little bit about her. Ms. Lapronda is the principal and chief visionary architect of Lain Consulting, an award-winning full-service consulting firm specializing in diversity certification support services, supplier group planning, program development, and government contracting. Since 2012, Lapronda has been responsible for the successful procurement of $2.2 million in grants and contracts from public and private foundations, local and state government, for local and regional clients, as well as Lain Consulting. So we are so happy to have you here this evening with us. We're going to have like 1,000 questions to ask you tonight.
That's good.
Because of course you deal with businesses. So I want you to go ahead and tell everybody about you and, your business.
Sure. So as you mentioned, the company is Lain Consulting. We are an award-winning firm. And I actually found this, well, technically this found me because I actually entered the market working with nonprofits. Wow. So this is really a twist from where I entered the market 8 years ago. I actually am a former public health professional by trade. I managed large federal grants for the hospital system. So that's how I knew the language of contracts and grants and things of that nature. And why I started my side hustle, like many of us do, still working full time. And I started to see notable success working in corporate America, but also doing a side hustle. I was really landing large grants for my clients. And many nonprofits would be sent to me to help them understand structure. How should I set up my board? What do I do next now that I got my paperwork? Now I can run and get this grant. And I'm like, nope, you just got that paperwork. That is not how this works. Right. And so that's how I entered the market. And there aren't many fundraisers and folks in the nonprofit arena that look like us. It's typically predominantly white, and a lot of them is predominantly male. Right. So that was a niche in and of itself, but I knew I never wanted to be a nonprofit. Why? Because no one owns a nonprofit. The nonprofit is a public entity. You can found it and not own it. You can't leave it to your family. And so I was like, now I know I got to figure out how to own this thing, still service the people that I want to service, but I want to have a legacy and build generational wealth for my family. And I don't want anybody to tell me what I can do with my vision. And so I chose never to be a nonprofit for that reason. Right. I also think that many nonprofits come into this space thinking that grants are going to be the end all be all, and it's not. Grants only account for 10 to 30% of somebody's budget. Hence why Lain Consulting became a thing, because I took a class at CPCC locally here in Charlotte. And the guy was teaching about invitations for bid, which is a term that they use when you're talking about going after government contracts. And I walked up to him boldly afterwards and said, I want to know everything you know. And I went to his office afterwards, told him who I was. He talked to me about certification, because you can become certified to become a minority or woman-owned or even a small business enterprise to do business with government and major corporations. Right. He walked me through that process. I got certified. And once you get certified, you will begin to get emails on bidding opportunities that you can pursue. Some will be in your area of expertise because you have to put codes in that relates to what you do.
Right.
And those codes will trigger emails to come to you that you may or may not be able to do in some of the contracts.
Wow.
So when I got certified, I got a bid, went to that same person who I'd met that was the instructor. He had just left his job to start his business. And I said, is this something you think we can partner on together? He said, yes. And we took a chance, and I landed a contract with CATS, which is the Charlotte Area Transit System, in 90 days after I got certified. And what I didn't realize was what a big deal that was, because what they tell most new business owners is that it typically will take you 2 years to land a contract. And I blew that out the water. And so it just took off from there. And so that and a number of other projects that I landed within about 6 months to a year. The next 18 months of my life, I spent winning awards for my company because of what I had done. I didn't know what I had done right, but I also realized that there was a niche, because when I started getting that visibility, many small business owners started coming to me, asking me what I had done, tell me more, can you help me get certified? And it just took off from there. So when I say it found me, it found me.
It found you.
It was not intentional. It just became a thing. And the funny thing is, I'm a woman in a very male-dominated industry, because government contracting is very male-dominated.
Right.
And so I became a niche, and I became a standout because I'm a woman doing this and showing others how to do it. So that is really my story and how I landed here. And I'm so passionate about it because I love helping people, but I really love helping my people understand how much money is out here and what they need to do next to get to it. If I can put you in front of it. Now, at the end of the day, you have to be able to understand what that looks like and how to pitch yourself, but just to be able to open that door to help people get off that gerbil wheel.
Right.
Instead of pumping 5,000 clients in a pipeline, you get 5 premium clients and it's the same amount of money.
Right.
So that is really my passion. It is how I landed here. Like I said, it wasn't intentional. It just became a thing, and it's always been word of mouth. I've never advertised.
What?
It's just
oh my God, that's awesome.
It's just been about being good to the clients that you serve, and then also really being strategic in how I volunteer my time or where I position myself.
Right.
So that's kind of my story and how I got here.
Well, I have a quick question then. You know, you mentioned so many things. That was just so loaded. I'm like, okay, where do I start? One, that's an awesome accomplishment, you know, just in and of itself. And it's an inspiration to us as women in business. 2 things you pointed out there is that you were a female, an African-American female in a male-dominated field, but yet there was a person that opened the door for you. What was that like? What did that feeling, what was that emotion at that moment? Because knowing what you know now, that it's not overly populated by a woman, the fact that a man did it, because I work in a field and most men don't like to open that door for you, especially not being an African-American woman. What did that conversation sound like? Because of many women, I'm certain that will watch the replay or watching now, have encountered that discrimination of some sense on their workplace, but to have someone that was so free to say, I want to pour into you. What did that look like? What did that picture look like for you?
So the biggest thing, like I said, is being bold. I approached him afterwards, and he could have told me no, but I'm bold enough to go up and say, I want to know what you know.
Right.
And I explained who I was.
Right.
I pitched, but the biggest thing is I always try to make my relationship building mutually beneficial. Because I don't just want to take from you. I want to figure out how I can give to you too. That's the first thing that many of us need to understand. So that was one of the things that I was like, sure. He was like, well, you do grant writing. Tell me a little bit more about what you do. And I started talking about it. And he was like, oh, yeah. And so you find ways to connect.
Right.
But then on top of that, even going to him and meeting with him afterwards so that he could support me, I don't believe in wasting anybody's time. So most of the time when I would meet people, I had an agenda. I literally would have a piece of paper and say, can I talk to you about this, this, and this? And when they see that, they understand that you mean business. You're not there just to kind of shoot the breeze, or you're not. I also encounter people who also will come and they want you to tell them what they should be doing in life. That is not my judgment. That's yours. I can support you, but your decision has to help me guide you. And so I always was crystal clear about where I wanted to go. I just needed the support, which makes it so much easier for someone to want to help you.
Right.
And then as we got into it and I approached him about, the certification, I always came back whatever I needed to get done, I came back with it done. If we were bidding on the project and he gave me an assignment when we were bidding together, I made sure my stuff was done. So, it's also about mastering your craft and executing because people don't have time to waste.
Right.
And so I valued his time and his expertise, but I also wanted to make sure that I was matching and at the top of my A game with him so that he wanted to take that chance with me. So there is an approach. I mean, you have to come prepared to do the work. And I think some of us like to say we're in business, but we don't want to grind it out to get done, to land in some of the places that many of us have been able to accomplish. So that was the biggest thing. I would just say, yeah, the male domination thing is big. And don't get me wrong, Leslie, people, especially men, have had a tendency to think I was the secretary and not understand my real intellect.
Right.
So with that, I gracefully thank them for their time. And under my breath, I'm, sometimes saying words that I should not be saying.
Right.
But I also know that I'm not going to waste my energy in that space.
That's right. I like that.
I
love that. Thank you so much for that, because that really, a lot of women that I'm certain are watching, we encounter that all the time, but you spoke about planning, but also executing. So I like that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question though. So Lapronda, when I'm as a business owner and I'm wanting to get a government contract, what does that look like based on the field that I'm in?
Sure. So the certification process is just an application process. It is filling out a piece of paper and adding supporting documents to that package for them to essentially process and vet your company to make sure that first you're a legal entity. And that includes sole proprietors, because I have a lot of folks who say they are sole proprietor and they have not registered their names anywhere. And just because you have a tax ID from the IRS does not mean that you're a legal entity.
That's right.
So that is the first thing is, making sure that you're a legal entity, having organizing documents in place. If you say you're a minority owned business, they're going to want to see proof of that. If you say you're a citizen, they're going to want to see proof of that. If you say you are in a certain industry, you should have the equipment to back that up because they want to know what equipment you're using. And if you're a service-based business, many of us are in that space.
Right.
Even a laptop, desktop, printer, and shredder is your tools and equipment that you're using to operate. Right. So it's those things that you have to have in place. It's not anything that you shouldn't already have in place. And if you don't, when I'm working with many of my clients, I'm talking them through, okay, here's a template. Here's what I need you to fill out in this space or place.
Right.
Here are, if you don't have this particular document, and a lot of times if you're an LLC, they want an operating agreement. If you're an S Corp, they want your organizing documents like your stock certificate, your transfer ledgers, your shareholders agreement, and things of that nature. If you don't know you don't have that because nobody ever told you should have it, I can send you to a link. You get a 7-day trial. You can get those documents done for free and send them back and put them in your packet. So we have mastered anything that people can encounter in that space to get certified, but it really is simply an application process. And it is the first step.
Okay.
But it is not the end all be all. It's just the first step. So if you think you get certified and they're going to run chasing you down, trying to give you a contract, Shauna can tell you that is not the case. So there are steps after certification that you have to follow. So what I did was, if you ever look on my website, I have an infographic that people can download, which is the 5 steps that moves people from getting certified to landing your first or next contract. And I put those 5 steps together because I would get bits and pieces depending on who I was dealing with in government when I was pursuing my own contracts. And every piece I would get, I just put it together. And it's the 5 steps that I tell many clients to follow, because the government doesn't necessarily hand you those steps. You may go to one person, they'll tell you one thing. You may go to another, they'll give you another nugget. But to put it all together as best I could to help small business owners understand how to navigate this space was important to me. And I get to tell it from a small business owner's perspective, not what the person on the other side of the table, which is the government rep, tells you.
Right.
It does make a difference.
Wow.
That's
I like that. I was just trying to take notes as you were talking. I'm like, wait a minute, I do have a replay. Let me stop.
Now, let let me ask you a question, Lapronda. With everything, all the grants and all the assistance that's now going to be coming down the pipeline, that's going to be available, that was available before,
Right.
but then it, of course, it ended, like the PPP, all the assistance that's out there due to the pandemic. How is that going to impact small businesses now? The things that were available, at one time now are now becoming available again. Do you go in and reapply for those things again? Because like for us, we applied for the PPP. We got approved for it for our business. So going back again and reapplying for other things, is that impactful as well, as you continually go back and reapply for other grants and other things that are available to small businesses?
So I will say, yeah, I think they're going to have packages to come out for a while, simply because COVID is here. But my suggestion is, don't rely heavily on that.
Right.
I relied on it to use those grants to help me pivot.
Right.
Because everything's virtual now. So anybody that had live events, they got wiped out. So now you got to figure out how to pivot, right?
That's right.
So I took that money, not just as an opportunity to have money, but to also strengthen the areas in my business that were weak. And one of them was technology. The other was software, and learning how to pivot virtually, provide one-on-one counseling or events. All of that is a part of what that's for.
Okay.
But even with that, at some point, now that you've done this pivot and you've gotten the money, you still have to know how to sell. So now, how do you strengthen the story that you tell? How do you pitch the problem that you solve for business owners to want to purchase from you, even as a virtual business now? So I will say, yes, these packages will continue to come, and they're going to be there. But at the end of the day, you need to take this to the next level. Figure out what your new elevator pitch is now that we're in COVID.
Right.
Figure out who your new clientele looks like, because now there's this new normal, and the clientele that you once had may not be readily available anymore.
Right.
And then even thinking about diversifying your revenue and thinking about government as a potential client, thinking about corporate America as a potential client, because though I signed a contract with the government in the middle of COVID, because the government never shuts down.
Never.
So when you understand the services and the skill sets that you bring and what you can offer to that client, and in this case it's government, then you may always work. So, some of that I didn't feel the pinch that many people felt, because I signed a contract in the middle of COVID. I was ending one contract in the middle of COVID and going right into another. So at one point they were overlapping, and I was still eligible for grants.
Right.
And the PPP and the EIDL loan and all these other packages.
Right.
So that is my suggestion to anybody's listening is, yes, take full advantage of it, but with a plan, as we talked about before, with a plan. If I get this amount of money, I'm going to buy this software to strengthen my technology, or I'm going to add an admin person, or I'm going to add a social media marketer, or whatever that looks like for you to push your business forward. Just make sure that is a big part of your plan.
It's sort of like investing back into yourself. We had Dr. Cheryl Wood last week, and she spoke about, her new Louis Vuitton shoes and all of that. But she also spoke about all the way early on in her career, how she definitely could afford it. She always poured back into herself, her brand, her business. So that really just kind of speaks to making sure you're upgrading so that we can stay abreast of the times and keep moving. So I definitely am with that. I like that.
Lapronda, we have a question actually in our chat.
Okay.
It's a pretty good question too. Latanya Blackman, she asked, what are the different eligible certifications and why would an owner want each? What do they
prefer?
Okay.
So here's where I'm going to blow people out of the water, because at the local and state level, we are only eligible for the minority-owned business enterprise certification and the small business enterprise certification.
Okay.
And that depends on the agency that you're applying to. At the local and state level, you will never be recognized as a woman-owned business, because they only recognize white women as women-owned businesses at the local and state level.
Right.
What?
At the federal level, we all can be women-owned small business, but yes, so you won't get, I'm a minority and a woman, or I'm a minority and a, it is either minority and or small business, but it depends on the agency.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that many of us need to understand is you don't get double the privilege because you're a woman, and it helps, because again, it helped me.
Right.
However, on paper, I'm only considered a minority-owned business or a small business enterprise.
Yes.
Every agency has its own acronym related to the certification. So for instance, for the city of Charlotte, I can be a minority and a small business. Okay. For the state of North Carolina, I can be a minority, and they just added the small business. For the Department of Transportation, I'm not either. Although I'm a minority owned business and I'm a woman, right, I would be eligible for the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise certification, because that's a whole nother acronym that they use on that end. Right. I am a small professional services firm because I'm a supportive services business. And so I land in that space. And then I also am a pre-qualified private consultant. So it depends on the agency. Every agency has its own acronym when it comes to certification, and every agency has its own pot of money. The city has a pot of money that's separate from the county. The county has a pot of money that's separate from the state. The Department of Transportation is actually a federal level certification, but it's in every state. So it depends on the agency. Who are you looking to do business with? Some of that is about doing research. And that's one of the 5 steps, is building your relationships and doing your research with the potential client and understanding what they require and what acronym you would probably yield if you determine to get certification from them.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that one. That was like, and LaTanya, she was like, wow. Like, so that was so interesting to learn, because
you just got to know where you're, like you say, you got to figure out what agency you're going to partner yourself with. And then that's, I have to be honest with y'all, it's like almost saying, if you're unfamiliar with these uncharted waters, that's where you come into play, Lapronda, because
you gotta hear her and just call it a day.
Yeah, I'm being honest, because you know the lingo, you know what to look for, you know, based off of my business structure, what would be a best fit for me to qualify. That's the key thing, is getting me qualified. And you would be the best person to lead me in that direction. Because I mean, you got minority here, women business owner here, you know, and like you said, everybody has a different pot of money. So determining what am I needing, you know, and what am I needing it for? So yeah, that's why I say I would have to lean on you.
So the certification, like I said, is the first part. And then it's, once I get certified, then what?
Yeah.
What's next?
Then what?
Because they're not going to come knocking on your door. Nope. They'll send you bids, but that doesn't mean they're knocking on the door. Hell, they're sending that to everybody because you fall under a certain category, right? So the next step, before people start sending in bids, the next thing I advise my clients to do is set up a meeting with the agency that you just got certified with. Why? For 2 reasons. One, because they need to know who you are. You need to introduce yourself, because they do business with people they know, like, and trust. Number 2, because you get to go in and ask a million questions. And here's some of the questions that we go in that we should ask, because they're the gatekeeper to get you to the decision maker who can write the check. So you can ask questions like, when was the last time a contract was awarded in marketing or temporary staffing or something to that effect? Like, whatever your industry is, when was the last time a contract was awarded in that area? What departments typically buy what I sell? So under the city of Charlotte, there are a number of departments. So which one out of these departments typically buy what I sell? When was the last time a contract was awarded to an agency in marketing or temporary staffing or whatever your area is? And then how can I get a copy of the winning and all submitted proposals? Why? Because it's public information.
It sure is.
And the way you learn about how to get access and understand what they're looking for, if they're looking for a digital marketer or a temporary staffing person, or a construction company, or even somebody that does events. You get to look at who they hired in the past, what their competitive advantage was, how they price themselves, and who they put on their team.
That's
Because
right.
it doesn't mean that you have to be the end all be all. You can partner. Remember, I partnered on my first contract with somebody else to strengthen my contract.
Right.
So you get to see how other people structured what they were doing and then determine how you can one up them or give a little twist to what they offered so that you're giving best value and the best price to position yourself for the opportunity. And then
So
you can
like,
even ask.
I see what you're saying now. So you're saying like, if Leslie and I partnered
Mhm.
and she does HR and then I'm in my field is IT or, building out new structures,
Right.
then it levels, the playing field levels out where
As
she
long
does
as-
the hiring of all the staff of everyone that we would need on the team in order to get the job done.
Mhm.
But now what is that called when you partner together? Because
So
that's like one single project, right? That's one project that you all collectively are doing just together, right?
Mhm. So that's a part of the relationship building piece. That's actually one of the steps because when you're partnering, you need to know who is also at the top of their game, and that's going to bring you value and
Mhm.
also help you shine in this space when you're going after this contract. So there are a few ways that you can approach it. In my case, I've been a joint venture. That first partnership that I had when the guy and I partnered to get that CATS contract, we
Right.
went in as a joint venture.
Okay.
What that means is both of us are considered leads.
Right.
Nobody's really the lead, and then the other person is a subcontractor. We
Right.
on paper look like one entity as a joint venture. However, the checks and the reporting will come through one entity, but on paper we look like one. So that's one way. It's called joint venture. The other is simply one agency serves as the lead. And so depending on whatever that project is, they would be what we would call a lead prime consultant or a prime consultant because they're the lead agency and they're hiring Shauna and Les. So you would be hiring Shauna and Leslie. So whatever their name of their companies are would be your subcontractors based on what you want them to do. And
Right.
they're going to carry out this on that part and Shauna's going to carry out this on that part. So
Okay.
you're the lead, you're responsible, you have to have the insurance and you have to report and they give the check to you and you got to make sure all your folks are paid based on what you all submit. But that's another way. It's prime consultant and sub consultants under, or if you're in construction, then it would be prime contractor and subcontractor. So anytime you see highway construction projects, those are what you're talking about, prime contractors and subcontractors. But you also can do a teaming arrangement. So I've been a part of teaming arrangements. However, one was an epic fail in that, say I'm here in Charlotte and Charlotte has a project. And in our case, there was a supportive services project that we were going after for the Department of Transportation. So I was going to bid a project and I partnered with a guy out of Raleigh and I was going to put him on my contract as a subcontractor. Raleigh had the same contract. He was going to serve as the lead and I was going to be a subcontractor under him, which means you get two for the price of one. You serve as lead on one, you serve as a sub on the other. You both win the contracts, you get double the money. But that comes with the relationship building, that comes with trust, and that comes with that opportunity. So you see a lot of teaming arrangements that can happen in this space when you're doing business with other folks in other areas of your state or in other states. So that is another way. So there are all kinds of ways you can play in this space.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yes.
I have a couple questions. My first question is, as a service-based business owner, what type of contracts are out there?
It depends on what you're talking about.
Okay, just so you know, I'm in the networking space, but I mean, just for, it can be finance or whatever the case may be. Like, I can remember when we would have the small business consortium, I remember you talking a lot about like the kind of like the park and rec stuff, but I don't remember a lot of service-based stuff. So are there good contracts out there for service-based? And then can we talk about hub?
So that's where you do your relationship building and you do your research with the gatekeepers in the office and agency, because they can better tell you and guide you on how you may fit in a contract. Now, here's an example. On most of the contracts with what we call disparity studies, where they're assessing how well the government has spent money with certified firms, we always had to have a public outreach component. And so in the public outreach component, you are the person responsible for making sure that small business owners came to the table to give feedback to the agency on what they thought about the process. Had they ever tried to apply for a bid? Did they win the bid? Did they find the process cumbersome? That outreach and engagement piece is a way, Shauna, because it may not necessarily be networking, but at the end of the day, you are networking, because when you bring people in the room, they get to meet each other, you're introducing you know, so that is a part. So how do you make yourself transfer those skills in a way that makes it more appealing to the opportunity that's available? So you may not be entering that market as a networker. You may be entering the market as what we call a public outreach and community engagement specialist, because you know how to do this. You've done this over and over. So you also have to learn the government's language, but that's a way. So it's what's the language? Because the government has its own language, and they may be able to use you. You just have to understand how. So that is one of the ways. And I'll give you an example, and I'm very transparent. So I was on a disparity study in 19 and 20. It ended in 20. I had to drive to Winston-Salem 3 days in a row. The company, I drove for an hour, sat for 2 hours, helped them out on the public, the registration and engaging people in that space, making sure people in the room, drove back home an hour. I did that 3 days in a row. They paid me $5,000 every day I sat there. That's the type of money that's in this space, y'all. You need to
you know, I'm
we do that in events.
I'm kicking myself in the face.
Right. So that's the type of stuff. Now I've seen it as low as 2,500. The other person that you may want to talk to about that, Shauna, is Christine Edwards, because Christine is all in that space and doing the public outreach events. That is, you all are overthinking this thing. I've hired admin assistants on these contracts. I've had transcriptionists on these contracts. There are all kinds of ways that you can play in this space. So when you're talking to many of the gatekeepers and decision makers, ask them when they talk about a contract, what were some of the skills on those contracts? And that's also important when you're doing pulling the winning and the submitted proposals, is looking to see what else was on there, because I promise you, there's always something in those contracts that you can do. You just have to know how to transfer your skills and spin it.
Wow. It's just the way you just changed how her title is, even though she knows she networks, but that's not what she would be considered going
but
into.
At the end of the day, that's what she's doing, public outreach. She's engaging the community. That's exactly what she does. They just use a different term for it.
Right.
It's still our relationship building. So,
yes.
Yeah. So Lapronda, so Latanya asked, and I was getting ready to ask the same question, because she asked it this way. She said, when you say certification, do you mean hub? And I was going to just ask you, so you do mean hub. So can you talk a little bit about hub, historically underutilized businesses, right?
Yeah, so that's just their acronym. That's the term for that particular department, but it's essentially the certification that you get to do business with the state of North Carolina, all 10 cabinets under the state of North Carolina across all 100 counties. Right. Leslie, in your case, Texas has its own, state of Texas has its own certification process, and you can do business across all the counties in Texas. And then when you want to do business in certain state cities or towns, then typically they either have a certification itself, like Charlotte has, or the town has a vendor registration. The city of Charlotte has a certification. Mecklenburg County has a vendor registration. Same thing. It's just putting the paperwork in to position yourself for the opportunities.
So pretty much it's just, you got to do both certifications. I got to do one for the county, and you got to do one for the county, one for the state.
Well, you should do it anyway. The reason, again, it goes back to what I said before. Every last one of them have its own pot of money.
Right.
So you got the city certification and the county contract came out and you can't apply because you didn't get the vendor registration. So that's why I'm saying cover all your bases of where you potentially want to do business.
Right. Now, what is the fees attached to those certifications?
There are no filing fees with government certifications. People only pay me to do the paperwork for them, but there are no filing fees for government. On the corporate side, the agency that handles that is at the national level, is National Minority Supplier Development Council. Right. Every region has a Supply Development Council. So in our case, in the Carolinas, we have one. Texas probably has one. I'm not sure what theirs is called there. Georgia has its own. Right. They typically charge $400 to file, and you have to renew it every year, like $300 to $350 every year, whether you get a contract or not.
Right.
So I say, if you want to just feel your way through the process and understand it, start with government first, because it's the most transparent. You can pull previous winning proposals. You can't do that on the corporate side. It's a little more difficult because it's private. And so that's the only difference, but no filing fees on the government side. There are filing fees on the corporate side.
Right.
And how soon, as a business owner, should you get certified?
So it depends on the state that you're in. In North Carolina, you can be in business in an hour and get certification, as long as you can put all paperwork in.
Look.
In South Carolina, as a minority-owned business, or minority women or small business, you have to be in business for a year. So it depends on the state, because each state has its own regulations. But here in Charlotte, in the state of North Carolina, Department of Transportation, you can be in business for a day. The only difference is with the Department of Transportation, they want you to have at least 3 projects under your belt. So you have to showcase and highlight that.
Right.
So even if you've been in business for a month, if you can show that you've done 3 projects in your area or service industry, then you can get approved. Other than that, they won't approve you.
Question for you, Donnie. This may seem kind of weird. What if you work for the county or the city? As you work a 9-to-5 job for them, can you still apply and be, get certified and as well do contracts, even though you work for the city, the county? Is that a conflict of interest?
It may be. It depends on the department. If it's a department that you're in already, maybe. But I would say have that conversation with the supervisor and make sure you understand their rules and regulations about you doing business. Many small business owners who get certified actually still have 9-to-5s. They don't jump until they've made them up.
See, and that's why, that's why I just thought about that question is, if you work for the city or the county, even if you work as contract for, it's just those questions of wondering, if I venture out and I still work for the city or county, can I still do that? If it's something I do as my side, you're trying to phase out of the 9-to-5, but you work for the county, the city, would that be considered a conflict of interest?
It may be. Again, it just depends on the supervisor. It just depends on the agency. But I would say this: if you do work for an agency that have these opportunities and you're still working for them full time, get acquainted with the people in these spaces before you jump.
That's true.
Because you can soak up as much as you could before you leave and already build a relationship, so that by the time you're gone and that contract hits that desk and they already have a relationship with you, guess what? They'll look out for you. So.
Well, that's what Mira and I actually had this conversation this week. She's like, you still working your 9-to-5, girl, and you haven't left? Well, I actually do HR, I do contracting. So I actually just went through the bidding process because I'm certified in HR. So I go in and do HR business services for entities that don't have an in-house HR manager. So everything from training, which is not housed in a lot of agencies, my goal is to go into there and actually do that. So my phase out is to come away from that, but be able to come and just do the government contract. So I'm actually waiting now for one decision, and I'm actually doing a joint because there are areas of HR that I just don't like. I do them all. But I'm actually venturing with another partner of mine to try to bid for this contract, which is an enormous amount of money. So my fingers are crossed. But when I do that, Amir, I'm going to be out of my 9-to-5.
And that's the thing about it is when you're doing contracts and stuff, you want to know what your options are, and do they conflict with any other, things that you may or may not, maybe considering doing. So that's why I was asking those questions, because a lot of times people don't ever think about, well, I work for the county, but, I may work in social services and I may think, well, that's not what I do as my business.
Right.
So, but because you work for the county, that may be a conflict. Yeah. So, you just got to be careful. That's all.
She dropped nuggets tonight, and I'm like, yeah, everything she said.
You better ask him. I'm asking every question I can think of that could possibly happen.
Yeah, I don't think an hour really is long enough to have conversation. Y'all gonna have to call her. Yeah. Tanya said she just got HUB certified. She's gonna be giving you a call.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's what you got to do. You got to, and I mean, Lapronda, I think you are a wealth. For you to have trained yourself and got you to this point is amazing, because some people don't have the time or the know-how. They're like, look, let me just hire her because she knows what she's doing.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give her the money, because on the back end is where it's gonna pay for itself.
Yeah.
You make the investment, you're going to get the return, you know,
Yeah.
and you know that because if you get, you know, a $60,000 bid or you get an $80,000 bid, depending on what your fees are, it's going to pay for itself.
Yes, indeed.
So
And I'm glad you brought that up because I tell people that all the time. If you pay $375 for me to help you get certified and your contract ends up being 25,000 or 35,000, you have 1,000x that.
Yes.
And so you've made up for it. So trying to get people to get in the mindset of that because we spend money wasting money on other things.
thank you. Yes, we do.
So many
Yes, we
ways.
do.
And so that's about investing in yourself.
So right.
And making decisions that will move your business forward. And so
It's an investment. I mean, it's a long-term investment. It may be, you may thinking, oh my God, that's a lot, but it's the long-term that you'll be able to benefit from. So I don't even see it. I actually hired someone because I'm like, okay, I just got to do it. But the long-term is going to be the benefit.
Right.
Yes. And that's how I look at it. I mean, that's why we had looked and getting in, looking and going in that direction again, because we did government contracts at one time. And so, things have changed over the years because that's been some time ago. And so when things have changed, policies have changed, you just don't know now how things operate. Now you just need to connect yourself with someone that's going to just help you just do the paperwork, y'all.
Right. But I would say even if you you may not go after a government contract because it's a longer sales process. So let me be clear. You're not going to turn around and flip that overnight.
That's true.
A lot of times. But what it does is it opens you up to the whole certification directory. So everybody on that certification list becomes accessible to you. So even if you have a product that you can sell, they become potentially an email list for you to submit information to, whether you're selling insurance, digital marketing, or whatever you're doing, teaching them about networking. Because one of the things that I tell people all the time is we have not learned how to build relationships and we don't know how to network. And so I've watched Carlos and Shauna both show us how to do that because I can't say that I'm great at it. What I'm great at is doing my work and putting myself in a position and building my reputation to really position myself as a subject matter expert.
But here's the thing though, you're good. Y'all can't hear me.
Yeah.
But you are good at it. And what makes the difference is the intentionality. You're intentional about how you build the relationships. You're strategic. You said that in the beginning. And that's where people fall short. The term networking is so cliche that people just, they toss it around like a ball. But once you become more intentional about how you're building relationships, who you're building relationships with, it looks a lot different. So now you're looking at meaningful relationships. Now you're looking at people or relationships that you can leverage, people that you can stay in contact with, who gonna open doors for you to other people, and vice versa. That's the difference. Yeah, you're doing a good job.
But I would say this, Shauna, so because when people think about networking, and I can tell you this, the first 2 years of business, I hated going to networking events. I'm not a chicken wing and wine girl. And if everybody in the room is in survival mode, you are in the wrong room.
Right.
So let me be clear.
Right.
So you get really crystal clear about where you need to spend your time. But what I knew I was good at is if I walked into one of those rooms and I started gathering people's business cards, I always followed up. So I was great at following up. And when I sat down with them one-on-one, because I'm better at one-on-one, just getting to know, I never tried to sell them anything. I just wanted to know who they were and what they did.
Right.
That was the difference for me. So networking can mean a whole lot of things to a lot of people. Right. For me, that was the way that worked for me. I don't do great in rooms and because I don't know how to be phony. Look, I was in corporate America. I didn't even know how to be that phony in corporate America, which is why I left. So I had to figure out what worked for me.
Yeah.
That's a strength. Being yourself. And I tell people that, like, I don't think I've ever in my life, networking in my life, right? But I've never walked into a room and I'm not the same person. Like, I'm always the same. You get the same Shauna every time. There's no mistaking who I am because I come the same way.
Right.
One-on-one, Lapronda, I'm like that too. I am an extrovert. I do get my energy from the people outside. Like, I gain that energy from everybody else. But I love intimacy. So small gatherings, small rooms, because that's where I think true conversation happens. That's where I think where you can get down to the meat and bones, right? So that, again, still in itself is intentional.
Right.
People, I don't believe nobody can go in a room and have and intentionally build relationships, period. You can
Right.
go
Yeah.
in a room and meet people. It's the first step in that process.
I
So
agree.
when you're following up, which is key, like that's where people really fall short. When I first started, that's where I was falling short. The
Right.
whole following up with people, stack of cards, and they still sitting somewhere.
Right.
Following up with people is really the key. But I started learning that y'all hear the term fortune is in your follow up.
Yeah.
I had to
Yes.
look at what was my fortune? What really was I looking to gain from this relationship? What was the real fortune, right? Did I just want to create a relationship? Did I want to partner and collaborate? Am I just trying to serve this person in some sort of
Right.
way, which does still build a relationship? Like, what is the fortune, right?
Right.
So you determine that, I believe. And hey, I think you've done an excellent job.
Yeah, you did. I ain't lying. And you're right when you say, I think, Lapronda, you are phenomenal with your one-on-ones. Because
Right.
even in just us in this space right here, like I'm just asking questions that I would normally ask you if we were trying to get, get my stuff established, get my paperwork done. What do I need to do in order to, you know, what would be your advice for me? Versus me coming to you, I would be asking you, what do you feel like I need to be doing?
Right.
Based off of what I'm doing, where do I fall? What
Right.
do I need to apply for? You know, and I think mostly it's training. You will be just training me
Right.
on learning how to do it.
Yeah.
Because even after we're done, we're not really done. Because I think I'm going to always find myself coming back to you like, I don't
LaPronda,
remember how
I
to do that kind of
know.
thing. Yeah.
But I'm okay with that because I build relationships for that reason. I
Right.
want you to succeed. And so I think the biggest, for me, I will just say the reason I feel like I've been successful is because I really want to see people win.
I like
And I
that.
promise that
That's
anything
good.
that I've ever learned, I would share like I'm doing tonight.
Right.
Because we've struggled, we've been left out from so many tables and so many boards. And so if the door was open for me to come to the table and sit at it, it is my responsibility to go back and tell people what's on the menu. And so I am always
wait.
That's
Stop right.
good.
Oh, wait.
I'm always looking
You ain't
for
gonna
ways
just go
to-
past that like we
You
didn't.
saw me go. I'm like, let me go.
She said, my job to tell you what's on the menu.
You need to
She
put
said
that
that
up.
and she stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah, but then I just asked her what
tweak that.
that's
That's
what
the
I'm
new
saying.
way.
Y'all did not just say, I just said that y'all is I need for her to tell me. So she gonna tell me what's on the menu.
Yeah, she just rolled past that and Sean and I facial expression was the same. We were like, wait, stop, go back.
So really quickly, y'all, I do want to be for everybody that's on here, I do want to give them the 5 steps, and you can certainly go on my website, but the 5 steps is first getting certified. Make sure you get certified. Understand what agency, but I don't even care. If you don't understand what agency, get certified anyway, it's free. The second is do your research. You have to know your client. So that's when I start talking about meeting with the gatekeepers and the decision makers, getting to the decision makers, understanding what they buy, how they purchase, the department, when they last awarded a contract, and then asking for those winning proposals because you want to understand your client and what they buy so you can position yourself as a subject matter expert. Number 3 is marketing the government is different than networking. Because you're not going in eating chicken wings and wine, passing out business cards. They have what we call a capability statement, which is your company's resume, even if you're a company of one. Capability statements have its own template. It requires its own language and the information that goes in it, along with the codes that are related to all the certifications that you apply for. Wow. That is how they understand who you are on paper. If you go forward and lead in with a capability statement, they know that you at least have some idea of who you're approaching. And that gives them some solace to do business with you because they know you at least understand that. So marketing the government is a little bit different. It's a capability statement. Number 4 is build those relationships. Yes. And if you don't know how to, get with Shauna and let her tell you how to make that happen and make those relationships mutually beneficial. You need to know who needs to know you and who do you need to know in this space to succeed. Because that is where we spend the bulk of our time when we're trying to land a government and corporate contract, because it's a longer sales process, but it's lucrative when you land it. Yes. Eat for a while. Contracts, I've had contracts that was a month long. That was one of the month long ones, was the driving to Winston-Salem, sitting for those 3 days. That was a month long contract, but that contract was 20 to 25 hours at $18,000. But you can work from 4 to 6 months or a year long, and many contracts are 3 to 5 years, especially in construction.
Yeah.
What happens to your revenue and the trajectory of your business when you can land a contract and you know every month you're going to invoice that $5,000, that $8,000,
Every month, Amira.
So no, that's the difference in this space. That's why I really push people in this space. Build the relationships, become the subject matter expert, that when they see something come across their desk, they pick up the phone because they think about you. And the other part to that is the relationships will yield you for informal contracts, because formal contracts are when they email everybody and let you know it's available. Informal contracts are under a certain amount and they never have to make it public. So if you don't build the relationships and it's under $100,000 or under $50,000, all they got to do is pick up the phone and call you.
Right.
They don't know to call you because they haven't met you. You haven't introduced yourself as that subject matter expert. So no, that's a big part of the relationship building. And they can sole source a contract, meaning I like Lapronda. Lapronda sent me a 3-page proposal. I had the water department to sign off on a contract that was $49,000, 3 pages long, and they signed off in 2 weeks. Sole sourced. I had no competition. There was no RFP.
Because it wasn't public.
Because it wasn't public and because they wanted me. And because it was under a certain amount. So relationships are everything. You need to spend a lot of time in the relationship piece and learning this process. And then last is when you get to pitch and land. So you do those 4 steps before you even pitch and land, because the pitching, you want it to be easy. Once they've built a relationship, you can pitch at that point because you know enough about what their problems are and how you solve it to give them what they need.
Right.
Okay.
Those are 5 steps.
Now, this is my question with the 5 steps.
Yes.
Do you also write my contracts for me? Do you do the proposals for me?
I don't write proposals, and I don't
Hey,
write
I got, you know, y'all see this, right? Y'all see.
But I do have people
I
that
pay the
do
money.
And the reason
to take my money, girl. Take
the
my money.
reason I don't is because I don't write in your industry. I need to know your industry inside and out. And if I don't know your industry inside and out in that way, I won't write. And so I always suggest that you find a proposal writer that can take your words and what you do and manipulate the page and put a spin on that thing to make you look like you the only one that they need to be hiring. And so I don't do that because I'm not your industry expert.
See, I got to ask those questions because if you don't ask, you don't ask, you don't know. So that's why I said I had to ask that question and see.
But I'm at a place, and I'll say this, I'm at a place where I don't even write proposals anymore. They come to me and offer me contracts. That's what happens.
Wow.
I love that.
In the space.
See?
Black girl magic and is full of
You better know it. See, that's when you know when she has finally arrived. See, when they come to you ain't got to worry about putting pen to paper no more. See, it's done.
No, that's favor. The Lord just said, look, you don't even need to come. I'm going to just send it your way.
But this is why I share, because I want you all to get it. And it's not enough women in this industry with me. Y'all come on now. We got to make money together.
Let's go, y'all. Add that to the resume.
And it's the thing about it, y'all. I mean, we were talking, and it's like some of these things that don't take but one piece of paper to fill out to get qualified. Right. It's like people don't even take the time out. You know, it's like saying, hey, it ain't but one page. You know, you just need this, and this. They may ask for 3 or 4 things from you, and that's all you need. And sometimes you be so lazy, you don't even want to. Well, that's too much work. Come on, really?
Right.
$10,000 or $15,000
who have hobbies and not a business.
See, and that's what we came to. What is it, Shauna? You got a question?
No, I don't. I actually have to bow out, guys. But I just wanted to say thank you for coming, Lapronda.
You're welcome.
We'll be talking.
Yes, this was wonderful. I mean, I seriously,
I
hate that. You know, it is 8 o'clock, y'all. We're gonna wrap it up because we don't want to take time away from everybody because it is Friday night. But we thank you so much, Lapronda, for being here with us. Again, everybody, thank you for coming and being a part, everybody. If you didn't get to see the live, hopefully everyone will get to see the replay. The show will air this week on Tuesday night on Hindsight Radio Station 103.5 on Tuesday at 9 p.m. and Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, both days. We are on Pandora as well as iHeartRadio. So we thank you all so much for being a part of Girlfriends Chit Chat Show, and we'll see you here
Thank
again
you,
on next Friday. You all have a good night.
You guys do.
Have
Oh
a
my
good
God, that
one.
was awesome. Thank you, ma'am. That was everything, y'all.
See you, ladies.
All right, are we off? Okay, awesome. All right, Shauna, thank you.
Thank you, Lapronda.
See y'all. Have a good one.
You too.